I think that there's a lot that's unresolved when it comes to blackness in Brazil. It's very shocking that a country has such a large population of people of a certain race, and it's not reflected in the popular images of that country. I think that advertising often tells us what a country aspires to. 10 years ago, I saw fewer black people in advertising. Like at the airport, I look at magazines, I turn the TV on, I'm looking at the advertising. Now I think there are a few more black people, but I have to tell you that I've never believed in celebrating this kind of progress. So in Americana, my character says racism should never have happened, so you don't get a cookie for reducing it. I kind of agree with my character. We can get caught up in congratulating ourselves for the small steps that we've taken, and we forget that there's still a long way to go. I'm a black woman, right? Obviously, right? But I think, well, first of all, because I'm Nigerian, I did not grow up with a racial sense of myself. I grew up with an ethnic sense of myself. So I grew up thinking of myself as an Igbo person. And so until I went to America, I really didn't think of race. I think it's important to have candidates in office because they're black. I don't apologize for it, because I think throughout American history, there's been affirmative action for white people. There is also often in America this need to lump blackness to make it one thing. It isn't. There are people who are descendants of slaves in the US. Actually, in my opinion, those are the people who should get affirmative action, because they have descendants who were just deeply, horrendously repressed. We all experience anti-black racism, but the histories are different. I just really think that for creative work, there should be complete freedom. I think the answer to a person writing something that is prejudiced is that you write back. That somebody writes something else, and that it becomes this kind of back and forth. But the problem, I think, is that when we start to censor, because we want to censor the bad, in the process, we will censor the good. I think we lose collectively. You read books published in 1950, and sometimes you come across something where you're like, oh Lord, that's actually not very good. But at the same time, the world then was portrayed as it really was. And I appreciate the truth. Actually, I have to tell you that living in the world now, I am so suspicious. I don't believe anybody, because I think they're not saying what they really think, especially on subjects like race, like immigration. Right? I think that people often say what they think is the right thing to say, and then they all turn around and vote for Trump. I think that a society that, whether in obvious ways or in subtle ways, encourages censorship, it's just not healthy for everyone. I think motherhood changed me, obviously. It changes any woman. When I got pregnant, I felt that my brain wasn't working anymore. I felt that I had become a stranger to myself in a kind of way. And then experiencing the loss of my parents, I think it really changed me dramatically. And obviously, if it changes me, it changes my work. And so when I say I think my sentences are longer, it's because I mean it. I think that there's a kind of loosening up. I'm no longer interested in following rules, because grief makes you realize that anything can happen at any time. And it makes you just very aware of how short time is, of our mortality. And I think there's a kind of, it's a willingness to do more. I think a part of me has always really loved a kind of maximalism, just throw it all in, don't hold back. But because the other part of me that went to an American writing program, where you're told to just really reduce things to the bare minimum. So I think I followed that in a way for a while, that American idea of minimalism, kill your darlings, take out what you don't need. And I'm over that. I think grief changed that for me. When I was a little girl, I loved church, I loved mass, I loved the drama. But I think talking about religion really requires a certain kind of complexity and nuance. Religion in Africa came hand in hand with colonialism. And often people converted to Christianity, not so much because they believed in this new God. They had been colonized, they had been overpowered, and if you wanted to advance in this new world, then you better convert. So in some ways, it was a very practical decision for the first generation of people who converted. I think religion is a force for good in so many people's lives. I've seen how it can bring comfort, especially when you live in a country that you don't have access to healthcare. Education is very precarious. So religion becomes, in some ways, your safety net. It's a mix and it's a complex thing. And I think that we can hold two things at the same time. And I'm happy about the new Pope because he seems to be human. I was very worried when I first heard that he was an American. You know, I think for me, the major concern was that there's something about Americanism that's very inward, that's very, very self-indulgent. You know, Americans don't really think they should know about the rest of the world because they have so much power. The American president did not win by a landslide at all. And I think that's important to remember. So it's not as though America collectively decided that this is the path they want to take. I think that there's certain people that you will never reach. I think that is also true for people on the far left. So it's not just the far right. But I do think that sometimes the way that Trump supporters are talked about can be very simplistic. So sometimes people will say they're all racists. I think some of them are racists. I don't think all of them are racists. I think that people who voted for Trump for different reasons. And I think that in some ways, this belief, for example, that magically he will fix the economy. It doesn't make sense, but I can see how people would believe that. And so I think it's important to constantly reach out to that middle. I really think that the Democratic Party should do more about talking about class, because really, talk of the economy and talk of economics is, I think, the thing that can bind different peoples together, because in the end, everyone wants eggs to be cheaper. I think it's very important to hold on to that idea that the things that matter are justice, freedom, autonomy for people, dignity. Those things matter. It's important to hold on to them. And really, this madness will pass. It will pass. I'm just a person who doesn't believe in the idea of giving up.